Life used to be simpler when Max was just a kid, back when the biggest problems we had to face were scraped knees and missing puzzle pieces. Now, as I watch my 15-year-old son, draped in a full leather jacket, his eyes hidden behind mirror aviators, I long for those uncomplicated days. "Yo, Dad," Max calls, his voice dipped in an accent he picked up from his gaming buddies, not from our humble suburban neighborhood. "Got any eats?" He saunters into the room, a lanky teenager in baggy jeans. I look at him, the way his fingers twitch restlessly like he's holding an invisible game controller, the way he squints at the harsh daylight filtering in through the window, and I can't help but worry. In our small town of Arlen, I've lived an unassuming life as a librarian. A guardian of knowledge, one might say. Yet, despite the countless stories I've encountered, none have prepared me for the tale my life has become. I am a father, a single father, trying to navigate the pixelated labyrinth my son is lost in. Max's world revolves around GTA 5, a game I only vaguely understand. I've watched him play, his fingers flying over the buttons in a deadly dance, orchestrating car chases, robberies, shootouts in a world that seemed to me a grim reflection of reality. I've watched him laugh, holler in joy, and then turn around to imitate the same brazen, reckless characters in real life. It was a gradual shift, almost imperceptible. First, it was the way he started to dress: baggy pants, oversized jackets, and dark shades, all mirroring the attire of his favorite game characters. Then came the language, the brash swagger in his words, the casual references to crime and violence. Suddenly, I was living with a stranger. "Dad, you listening?" Max interrupts my musing, a packet of potato chips crunched in his hand. I look up, forced to return to reality, my reality that's far removed from his. "Yes, Max," I reply, attempting a smile. "Just lost in thought." "About that old library again?" he teases, winking at me as he exits the room, leaving me in the unsettling silence that follows his cacophonous presence. "Yes, Max, the library." And a father's mounting concern for a son who can't distinguish between the borders of his console screen and the edges of his real world. A son who is slipping further into a violent fantasy, leaving me scrambling to pull him back. As the silence grows around me, so does my determination. I need to find a way to guide Max out of this pixelated illusion. For his sake, and mine. My journey starts at my sanctuary, the town library. Nestled between bustling grocery stores and towering office buildings, the library is a quaint, two-storied relic from a simpler era. Inside its hallowed walls, my worries recede, replaced by the comforting scent of well-worn pages and the hushed whispers of stories waiting to be discovered. It's here that I stumble upon my potential solution. It's an old, leather-bound book left carelessly on a reading table. The gold lettering on its worn spine reads, "The Art of Immersive Theater." As I flip through its aged pages, a forgotten spark kindles inside me. Theater! Could this be the key to breaking through Max's pixelated wall? But the idea of a grand theatrical setup seems too absurd, too grandiose. I'm just a librarian with a crisis, not a Broadway director. Then, a thought strikes me. I can remember Max's eyes lighting up whenever he'd win a game or unlock a new level in GTA 5. The thrill of achieving something, even if it was virtual. I didn't need a Broadway setup. I needed to create scenarios, little vignettes of reality, carefully curated to reflect his game, but in our mundane, consequence-ridden world. The plan starts to take shape in my mind. I just needed a team. Actors. This is where my best friend, Frank, comes in. Frank owns the town's only amateur theater group, a motley crew of passionate locals, none professionally trained but all eager to immerse themselves in diverse characters. "Harry, you want us to do what now?" Frank raises an eyebrow, his fingers drumming on the coffee-stained script spread out before him. I clear my throat, repeating my plan, the uncertainty lingering in the air like an unwanted guest. Frank remains quiet for a moment, processing. He takes a sip of his lukewarm coffee before finally speaking. It's unconventional, to say the least, Harry. But if it's for Max, count us in. And so, over days and nights blurred with planning sessions and strategy meetings, a unique and carefully crafted immersive theater begins to take shape. Roles are decided, locations picked, and scenarios designed with painstaking detail. The line between reality and theater becomes increasingly thin, as the actors start to live their characters, the anticipation building. Yet, despite the excitement, I cannot shake off the gnawing uncertainty. Am I leading my son into a more complex maze under the guise of setting him free? The question lingers, echoing in my restless nights, and follows me as I take my first step into uncharted territory. Is this the right path? I can only hope so. For Max. For me. And for a future that seems increasingly hinged on a perfectly staged reality. The first few scenes go off without a hitch. Max is oblivious to the act, amused by these unexpected events that so closely mirror his digital escapades. His eyes gleam with a mix of confusion and delight, his fingers twitching as if reaching for the non-existent controller that can guide him through these uncanny realities. But the real test is yet to come. It's a regular Wednesday when the climax unfolds. Max, his buddy, and one of our actors are strolling down the town's main street. It's time for the stealing a car scenario. I'm watching from a distance, my heart pounding in my chest. Frank, who's playing a passerby, gives me a reassuring nod before sauntering off into the scene. The bait, a sleek, black unattended car, gleams in the afternoon sun, its keys tantalizingly visible through the window. Max's eyes flicker towards the car, a devious grin curling on his face. He nudges his friend, points towards the car, and they both chuckle. Then, quicker than I anticipate, Max strides towards the car, glances around, and makes his move. The seconds that follow feel like a lifetime. With a wailing siren, a cop bursts onto the scene. Max is arrested, the thrill in his eyes replaced with shock and then fear as the handcuffs click onto his wrists. The scenario had been rehearsed multiple times, but watching my son's reaction unfold in real time makes my heart constrict. The climax reaches its peak when I walk into the makeshift jail as a distraught father visiting his wayward son. Max, I choke out, maintaining my role but struggling to keep my emotions in check. Why? How did it come to this? Max looks at me, the fear in his eyes shattering the gamer's bravado he'd cloaked himself in. Dad, I don't know. It was just like the game. As I sit across from my jailed son, my words pour out. A father's despair, a father's disappointment, a father's heartache. The cell is silent except for the echo of my words and Max's shaky breathing. I can see him processing, his mind wrestling with the severity of the real-life consequences of his actions. As I leave the jail, my heart is a tangle of relief and guilt. I've shattered my son's illusion, forced him to see the stark difference between in-game actions and their real-life repercussions. It feels like a victory, but the victory tastes bitter as I look back at Max's pale face, his eyes wide with a realization that strikes deeper than any game level ever could.